Captain Ji-hoon Kim stood on the bridge of the New Seoul, watching the stars through the main window. 3 months ago, his ship had made the first jump to faster-than-light travel in human history. Now they were far from Earth, mapping new star systems that no human had ever seen before. "Captain, we're picking up something strange," said So-Min Lee from her seat at the navigation controls. Her fingers moved quickly over the bright buttons and screens. "There are ships out there. Big ones." Ji-hoon walked over to look at her screen. He had been in space for 15 years, but he had never seen anything like this. The ships were huge, much bigger than anything humans had ever built. They looked like metal sharks with sharp edges and glowing red lights. "How many?" he asked. 20 ships. Maybe more," So-Min said. Her voice was quiet. "They're moving toward us." Dong-Woo Park looked up from his weapons station. He was a big man with serious eyes who had served in the Korean Navy before joining the space program. "Captain, should I power up our guns?" "Not yet," Ji-hoon said. "We came here to explore, not to fight. Maybe they're friendly." The ship's communication system began to make noise. A voice spoke in a language none of them had heard before. It sounded angry and rough, like broken glass. Yoo-jin Choi, the chief engineer, was working at her computer. "I'm running the voice through our translation program. Give me a minute." Ji-hoon watched the alien ships get closer. They were beautiful in a scary way, like storms or volcanoes. Part of him was excited to meet another species. Part of him was afraid. "Got it," Yoo-jin said. "The computer can understand their language now." The alien voice came through the speakers again, but this time in Korean. "Small ship, you will stop and prepare to be boarded. State your species and your homeworld location." Ji-hoon took a deep breath. This was the moment humans had dreamed about for hundreds of years. First contact with aliens. He pressed the button to respond. "This is Captain Ji-hoon Kim of the human vessel New Seoul. We come in peace from the planet Earth. We're explorers, not warriors." There was silence for a few seconds. Then the alien voice laughed. It was not a nice laugh. "Humans? We have never heard of this species. Your ship is small and weak. You will tell us where your world is located so we may add it to the Veltar Empire." Ambassador Haewon Song stepped forward. She was a small woman with gray hair who had spent her life working to prevent wars on Earth. She had been chosen for this mission because she was good at talking to people and finding peaceful solutions. "I am Ambassador Haewon Song," she said, into the communication system. "We represent Earth and all humanity. We seek friendship and trade with other species. Perhaps we can work together." The alien ships were very close now. Ji-hoon could see details on their hulls, weapon ports, armor plating, and symbols that looked like claws or teeth. "Friendship?" the alien voice said, and laughed again. "You speak like children. The galaxy belongs to the strong. The weak serve or die. Your species will learn this truth soon." A new voice came through the speakers. This one was deeper and more powerful. "I am War Commander Thexvar of the Veltar Empire. We have conquered 17 star systems. Your pathetic species will be the 18th. Haewon tried again. "Commander, surely there is room in the galaxy for all species to live in peace. What can we offer your people in exchange for friendship?" "You offer us nothing," Thexvar said. "You are insects. Your technology is primitive. Your ship could not defeat one of our fighter craft. You exist only because we allow it." So-Min whispered to Ji-hoon, "Captain, More ships are coming? Big ones. Ji-hoon looked at her screen. 3 massive ships had appeared, each one the size of a city. They had guns that could probably destroy a planet. You see our power, Thexvar said. Now you will give us the location of your homeworld. Our fleets will arrive there soon to begin the conquest. Your people may serve as slaves if they surrender quickly. We cannot do that, Ji-hoon said. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. We will not tell you where Earth is. The bridge was very quiet. Everyone was looking at him. He knew that what he said next could decide the fate of all humanity. You refuse? Thexvar sounded surprised. No species has ever refused. The Veltar Empire. We have crushed civilizations that were thousands of years older than yours. Then you haven't met humans before, Ji-hoon said. There was a long pause. Then Thexvar spoke again, and his voice was full of anger. Very well. You have chosen death for your entire species, but first you will watch as we broadcast your world's location to every ship in our empire. The coordinates are being taken from your navigation system now. Yu-jin was typing quickly on her computer. Captain, they're hacking into our systems. I can't stop them. Your pathetic security is no match for Veltar technology, Thexvar said. Ah, yes, Sol System, 3rd planet, Earth. Such a small blue world. It will burn beautifully. The main screen showed a map of local space. Red dots were appearing everywhere. Veltar ships receiving the message about Earth's location. Attention all Imperial forces, Thexvar broadcast on all frequencies. A new species called humans has been discovered. Their world is Earth in the Sol system. They have refused to surrender. This will be an example to other primitive species. Prepare your fleets for conquest. Hundreds of ships across dozens of star systems received the message. Fleet commanders looked at the coordinates and began planning their attacks. Dong-Wu looked at his weapon controls. Captain, we can't fight all of them, but we can take a few with us. No, Ji-hoon said. We need to get home. Earth needs to know what's coming. Running away. Thexvar laughed. Yes, run home to your little world. Tell them that the Veltar Empire is coming. Tell them that resistance is useless. Perhaps if they surrender immediately, we will let some of them live as servants. So-min, get us out of here, Ji-hoon ordered. The New Soul's engines roared to life. The ship turned and jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving the alien fleet behind. But the damage was done. Across the galaxy, Veltar commanders were looking at star maps and calculating how long it would take to reach Earth. Some were excited about conquering a new world. Others were disappointed that it would be so easy. None of them had any idea what humans were really capable of when their home was threatened. War Commander Thexvar smiled as he watched the human ship disappear. Fools, he said to his officers. They could have died with honor. Instead, they will watch their world burn and know that they caused it. He began planning the invasion of Earth. It would be a simple operation. One fleet should be enough to conquer such a primitive species. He would be back home in time for the victory celebration. The New Soul raced through space toward Earth. In the captain's cabin, Ji-hoon sat alone, thinking about what he had done. By refusing to surrender, had he doomed humanity? Or had he given them their only chance to survive? He didn't know it yet, but he had just started a war that would change the galaxy forever. Fleet Admiral Korthak looked at the star map in his command center. Earth appeared as a small blue dot, spinning quietly in its solar system. He had been chosen to lead the conquest of this new world, and he was not impressed by what he saw. 50. Ships should be more than enough, he told his second-in-command, Captain Vexmar. This species has only just discovered faster-than-light travel. They probably have no real weapons. Vexmar nodded. The scouts report that their largest ships are smaller than our fighters. Their technology is very basic. Korthak smiled. This would be an easy victory. The High Command had given him 50 ships, enough to conquer a major world. For this primitive planet, it was massive overkill. He would be home in a week, maybe less. 3 months had passed since the new Sol had returned to Earth with news of the alien threat. The planet had not been quiet during that time. President Taemin Yu had called every world leader to an emergency meeting. For the first time in human history, all nations had agreed to work together. Defense Minister Yoon-ji Lim had taken control of every military force on Earth. Science advisor Woo Seok-jung had organized every scientist and engineer to work on new weapons. But they all knew it might not be enough. Commander Soo-young-han stood on the bridge of her ship, the Busan. Around her, 43 other human ships waited in formation near Earth's moon. It was the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled, but compared to what was coming, it looked very small. "Any word from the scouts?" she asked her communication officer. "Nothing yet, Commander. But long-range sensors show something big approaching the edge of our solar system." Soo-young had been chosen to lead Earth's defense because she was the best tactical mind in the human military. She had studied every battle in human history, from ancient sword fights to modern wars. Now she had to use everything she knew against an enemy unlike anything humans had ever faced. Strategic genius Min-ho Kang had worked with her to develop new fighting methods. They couldn't match the aliens' technology, so they had to be smarter and more creative. "Remember," Soo-young broadcast to all ships, "we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to survive and make them pay for every meter of space." On the Veltar flagship, sensors detected the human fleet waiting near Earth's moon. "Admiral," Vexmar reported, "the humans have assembled their forces. 44 small ships." Korthak laughed. 44? Is that all they have? This is even easier than I thought. He looked at the display showing Earth's defenses. "Look at those ships. They're tiny. Some of them look like they were built for cargo transport, not war." He was right. Many of the human ships had been converted from civilian vessels. Cargo haulers, research ships, even luxury liners had been fitted with weapons and armor in the desperate months before the invasion. "Should we send a surrender demand?" Vexmar asked. "No," Korthak said. "Let them try to fight. It will be amusing to watch them die." The Veltar fleet dropped out of faster-than-light speed at the edge of Earth's solar system. 50 massive warships, each one armed with weapons that could level cities. They began moving toward Earth like a pack of metal wolves. Human pilot Jae Sung-oh was sitting in the cockpit of his fighter, attached to the carrier ship Seoul. He had been a test pilot before the war, someone who flew experimental aircraft that sometimes exploded. Now he was about to face alien technology in a ship built from spare parts and hope. "All fighters, launch," Soo-young ordered. 200 small human fighters poured out of the carrier ships. They looked like angry wasps swarming around their larger companions. On another ship, pilot Yeona Shin checked her weapon systems one last time. She had been flying for the Korean Air Force when the call came for volunteers. Like thousands of others, she had left her old life behind to defend Earth. "This is it," she said to her squadron. "Remember what we trained for. Hit fast, hit hard, and don't let them surround you. The two fleets faced each other across the dark of space. The Veltar ships were elegant and deadly, their weapons glowing with energy. The human ships looked rough and improvised, held together by metal patches and determination. "Begin the attack," Admiral Korthak ordered. Red energy beams lanced out from the Veltar fleet. Several human ships exploded immediately, their armor no match for alien weapons. But the humans didn't run. Instead, they spread out and began moving in patterns the aliens had never seen before. "What are they doing?" Vexmar asked, watching the human ships on his display. The humans were flying like they were crazy. Their fighters dove between the massive alien ships, firing at close range before spinning away. Their larger ships worked in pairs, one drawing fire while the other attacked from the side. Jae-sung screamed his fighter between the guns of a Veltar cruiser, his laser cannons sparking against its shields. The return fire missed him by centimeters. But he kept flying, kept shooting. "They fight without fear," Vexmar observed. "Are they drugged?" "They are primitives," Korthak said. "They do not understand the danger." But he was wrong. The humans understood the danger perfectly. They just didn't care. Engineer Byung-Soo Ryu was working in the engine room of his ship when the captain's voice came over the radio. "Byung-Soo, we've lost main weapons. Can you give me anything?" Byung-Soo looked around at the damaged systems, then smiled. "Captain, how do you feel about ramming speed?" "What?" "I can overload our engines. Turn us into a guided missile. We'll only get one shot." There was a pause. Then the captain said, "Do it!" Byung-Soo began typing commands into his computer. All over the human fleet, engineers were making the same desperate choice. If they couldn't win with weapons, they would win with their ships themselves. The first human ship to ram a Veltar vessel was the cargo hauler Mokpo. Its captain aimed the nose directly at an alien cruiser and pushed the engines to maximum. The ship accelerated like a bullet, smashing into the alien vessel's side. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire and metal. "Impossible," Korthak said, watching the explosion. "They destroyed their own ship." More human ships began ramming attacks. The converted liner Jeju ran straight into a Veltar destroyer. The research vessel Daejeon crashed into an alien battleship's weapon batteries. Each impact destroyed both ships, but the humans kept coming. "Admiral," Vexmar said, his voice worried. "We've lost 6 ships." Korthak stared at the battle display. 6 ships lost to an enemy that should have been helpless. "How is this possible?" Yeon Ah-shin's fighter had been hit by alien fire. Her engines were failing and her weapons were dead. But she could still fly. She aimed her crippled ship at a Veltar command vessel and pushed the throttle forward. "For Earth," she whispered, as her fighter struck the alien ship's bridge. The human fleet was being destroyed, but they were taking aliens with them. Every human ship that died made the Veltar pay. By the end of the battle, 15 Veltar ships had been destroyed or badly damaged. The surviving human ships retreated toward Earth's moon bases. They had lost more than half their fleet, but they were still fighting. Commander Su Young Han's ship, the Busan, had been hit multiple times. Her bridge was filled with smoke and sparking electronics. But she was still alive, and so were some of her people. "Fall back to the moon," she ordered. "We'll make our stand there." Admiral Korthak looked at his fleet status. 35 ships, remaining out of 50, against primitive humans. This was not the easy victory he had expected. "Sir," Vexmar said, "should we call for reinforcements?" Korthak thought about it. If he asked for help, other commanders would want to share the glory of conquering Earth. And the High Command would ask difficult questions about why he needed help against such a weak enemy. "No," he said finally. "We have enough ships to finish this. The humans are defeated. All we have to do is land troops and occupy their world." He began preparing his report to the High Command. He would tell them that the humans had been unexpectedly resilient, but were ultimately defeated. He would ask for minimal reinforcements to finish the occupation, not wanting to share credit with other officers. It was the biggest mistake of his life. On Earth's moon, the surviving human defenders prepared for the next attack. They had lost the battle in space, but they had learned something important. The aliens could be hurt. They could be killed. And humans were very good at killing when their home was threatened. Commander Su-Young Han looked at Earth through the window of her damaged command center. The blue planet looked peaceful from here, but she knew alien ships would soon be landing on its surface. "Get me President Yu," she said into her radio. "Tell him the fleet is broken, but we're not finished yet." The real war was about to begin. Changmin Quan crouched in the ruins of Seoul, watching Veltar soldiers march through the streets of his home city. 6 months had passed since the aliens had landed on Earth and declared victory. They controlled the major cities and military bases, but they were about to learn that conquering Earth and holding it were two very different things. The Veltar had expected humans to surrender after their fleet was destroyed. Instead, millions of people had disappeared into forests, mountains, and underground tunnels. The resistance had begun before the first alien boot touched the ground. Chang Min had been a police detective before the invasion. Now he led a group of fighters who specialized in making the occupiers' lives miserable. His team included Jin Anam, a former Army explosives expert, and Hyun Woo Bei, who had been a Special Forces sniper. "Target approaching," Jinna whispered into her radio. She was hidden in a building across the street, watching a Veltar patrol through her rifle scope. The aliens walked down the street like they owned it. Their armor was thick and their weapons were powerful, but they had one weakness. They thought like soldiers, not like people fighting for their homes. Chang Min pressed a button on his remote control. The street exploded. Jinnah had buried explosives in the road 3 days earlier, using techniques she had learned in the army but adapted for this new kind of war. The blast killed 4 Veltar soldiers and wounded 2 others, but the explosion was just the beginning. Hyunwoo's rifle cracked from a rooftop 2 blocks away. One of the wounded aliens fell. Then Chang Min's fighters attacked from 3 directions at once, using weapons they had stolen from previous raids. The surviving Veltar tried to call for help, but their communications had been jammed by equipment Dr. Subin An had built in her secret laboratory. She had been an electronics professor before the war, and now she spent her time finding ways to turn alien technology against its creators. The fight was over in 2 minutes. 6 alien soldiers were dead, and the humans had captured their weapons and armor. Chang Min's team disappeared into the underground tunnels before reinforcements could arrive. This scene was repeated thousands of times across Earth. Humans fought with a creativity and viciousness that shocked their occupiers. Captain Gitai Im had been a naval officer before the invasion. Now he led raids against alien supply depots, using boats to strike at coastal facilities. His specialty was psychological warfare. "The aliens have rules," he explained to his team as they prepared for their next mission. "They have codes of honor and proper ways to fight wars. We're going to use that against them." His target was a Veltar fuel depot on the coast of Busan. The aliens had built it to supply their aircraft, but they had made a mistake. They had built it like a military base, with proper defenses and guard procedures. Jitae's attack came from the ocean at night. His people swam ashore wearing stolen alien equipment, making them look like Veltar soldiers to their own censors. They walked right through the front gate. Once inside, they didn't just blow up the fuel tanks. That would have been too simple. Instead, they poisoned the fuel with chemicals that would cause alien aircraft to crash randomly over the next few weeks. They also planted recording devices that would broadcast screaming sounds on Veltar communication frequencies. But the worst part was what they did to the guard commander. They didn't kill him. That would have been honorable. Instead, they stripped him naked and tied him up with a sign around his neck that said, "I failed to protect this base," in the Veltar language. For a warrior culture like the Veltar, this was worse than death. The commander would be disgraced forever, and other officers would know that humans didn't follow the proper rules of warfare. Dr. Subin An worked in a hidden laboratory beneath the ruins of the Korean Institute of Technology. She had assembled a team of scientists and engineers who were reverse engineering captured alien equipment. "Their computers are actually pretty simple," she explained to her assistant, while examining a Veltar communication device. "They're more advanced than ours, but they're not designed to handle the kind of creative interference we can generate." Subin had developed viruses that could crash alien systems, jamming devices that could block their communications, and even programs that could make Veltar computers display embarrassing messages about their operators. Her greatest success was a device that could intercept and modify Veltar orders. When alien commanders sent instructions to their troops, Subin's equipment would change the messages slightly, causing confusion and mistakes. The Veltar began to realize that something was terribly wrong with their conquest of Earth. Their soldiers were dying in ambushes every day. Their equipment was failing in mysterious ways. Their officers were being humiliated by an enemy that refused to fight properly. Commander Vexmar sat in his command center in occupied Tokyo, reading reports from across the planet. The news was all bad. "Sir," his aide reported, "we've lost another supply convoy. The humans used some kind of acid that ate through our vehicle's armor." "And the situation in Europe?" Vexmar asked. "Getting worse. The humans there are using biological weapons. They released some kind of disease into our food supply. It doesn't kill us, but it makes our soldiers very sick." Vexmar looked at the map showing human resistance activity. Red dots covered every continent. "How many troops do we have in the medical centers?" "Nearly 20% of our ground forces, sir, and the humans keep attacking the medical facilities." This was something the Veltar had never experienced in their other conquests. Most species surrendered when their military was defeated. Those that fought on used conventional tactics that could be countered with superior firepower. Humans fought like the war was personal. The breaking point came on a cold morning in the mountains of Korea. Yejin Ko had been a university student before the invasion, studying literature and poetry. Now she was strapping explosives to her body in a tunnel beneath a Veltar command center. "Are you sure about this?" Changmin asked her. "There might be another way." Yejin smiled. "There is no other way. They have 200 officers in that building. If I can kill them all, it will hurt their entire operation in this region." She had volunteered for the mission because she was small enough to crawl through ventilation shafts that larger fighters couldn't navigate. The explosives she carried were powerful enough to bring down the entire building. "Tell everyone," she said as she prepared to enter the shaft, "that humanity doesn't surrender, ever." Yejin crawled through the metal tunnels for an hour, making her way to the center of the alien building. She could hear Veltar officers talking in their harsh language, planning new attacks against human civilians. When she reached the main conference room, she could see dozens of alien commanders gathered around a holographic display showing Earth. They were discussing which cities to destroy next as examples to the human resistance. Ye-Jin closed her eyes and thought about her family, who had died in the first bombing of Seoul. She thought about her friends who were fighting in tunnels and forests across the world. She thought about children she would never have, and the Earth her generation was trying to save. For humanity, she whispered, and triggered the explosives. The blast was heard for miles. The entire Veltar command center collapsed, killing 200 alien officers and destroying months of intelligence about human resistance activities. But more importantly, Ye-Jin's final transmission had been intercepted by Veltar communication systems. Her last words, "Tell the galaxy that humanity doesn't surrender," spread across Imperial networks, reaching thousands of alien soldiers. The message was translated and forwarded up the chain of command. Soon, officers throughout the Veltar Empire were reading the final words of a human who chose to die rather than live under alien rule. Admiral Korthak had moved his headquarters to Earth's moon after losing too many command staff to human attacks. He was reading casualty reports when the message from Ye-Jin Ko reached his desk. "Sir," his aide said, "the humans have started broadcasting this message on all frequencies. It's becoming some kind of rallying cry for their resistance." Korthak looked at the translation of Ye-Jin's words. He had conquered 17 worlds, but he had never seen anything like this. Other species fought for territory or resources. Humans seemed to fight for ideas. "How many troops have we lost this week?" he asked. 400 dead, 800 wounded, sir. And the medical facilities are overcrowded with soldiers suffering from human biological and chemical weapons. And our supply situation? Critical. Sir, the humans destroy our supplies faster than we can replace them. They seem to know where everything is before we put it there. Korthak realized he was not fighting a defeated enemy. He was fighting something that became more dangerous when cornered. Every human death made the survivors fight harder. Every victory by his forces was answered by more creative and vicious attacks. He began drafting a message to the High Command, requesting massive reinforcements. This time, he didn't care about sharing glory with other commanders. He just wanted to survive. But the message was intercepted by Dr. Subin On's equipment and modified before it was sent. Instead of a desperate plea for help, it became a routine. Reports saying that the occupation was proceeding smoothly. The High Command read Korthak's report and decided that Ambassador Yuri Seo floated in the zero gravity of the Zephyrian space station, watching the strange aliens move through their crystal corridors. The Zephyrians were peaceful creatures who looked like tall, thin humans made of blue light. They had never fought a war in their 10,000-year history. "Your species interests us greatly," said Velandra, the Zephyrian diplomat who had agreed to meet with the human representative. "We have heard disturbing reports about something called the Earth Incident. Yuri had escaped Earth 6 months after the Veltar invasion began, carrying important information about alien weaknesses that the Resistance had discovered. Her mission was to warn other species about the Veltar Empire's expansion plans. The Veltar Empire is conquering worlds across this region of space," Yuri explained. "Earth was supposed to be an easy victory for them. It hasn't worked out that way." Velandra's light flickered in what Yuri had learned was the Zephyrian equivalent of concern. "We have monitored some of their military communications. They seem frustrated with your species." "We don't surrender easily," Yuri said. What she didn't tell the Zephyrian was how the war had changed humanity itself. The gentle people of Earth had become something harder and more dangerous. Every day of fighting had taught them new ways to kill their enemies. Colonel Soon Ok Pyo was demonstrating human military tactics to a group of alien military observers at a secret base in the asteroid belt. The observers were from species that the Veltar had marked for future conquest, and they wanted to understand how humans had survived where others had failed. The key is to never fight the enemy's kind of war, Sunoke explained as she showed them video footage from Earth. The Veltar expect their enemies to meet them in open battle with matching technology. We don't do that. The video showed human fighters attacking a Veltar convoy, but instead of a direct assault, the humans had spent weeks studying the convoy's route, learning the aliens' schedule and habits. When they finally struck, it was with perfect timing and overwhelming force at the moment when the enemy was most vulnerable. We call this asymmetric warfare, Sunoke continued. You don't fight their strengths. You fight their weaknesses. An alien observer from the Kithara Merchant Federation raised a tentacled arm. But surely such tactics are dishonorable. Where we come from, warriors face each other in fair combat. Sunok smiled grimly. Honor doesn't matter when your children are being killed. We fight to win, not to look good doing it. She showed them more footage, humans using the Veltar's own honor code against them, forcing alien commanders into situations where they had to choose between victory and following their cultural rules. Most chose honor over tactics, which made them predictable and vulnerable. The alien observers watched in fascination and horror as humans demonstrated concepts that were foreign to most galactic civilizations: total war, acceptable losses, and the willingness to sacrifice anything for victory. Admiral Mi-kyung-no had been in space for 2 years, leading a fleet of captured Veltar ships against Imperial supply lines. Her crews were volunteers who had chosen to leave Earth to carry the fight to the enemy's home territory. Target confirmed, reported her navigation officer, Sang-Hun Lee. Veltar supply depot, lightly defended. Mi-kyung looked at the tactical display. The depot was on an asteroid in an unimportant star system, but it supplied 3 Veltar fleets with ammunition and fuel. Destroying it would cripple alien operations in this region. This isn't just a raid, she told her crew. There are slave workers on that base. People from the worlds the Veltar have conquered. We're going to free them. Her communications officer, Da-un Jang, had been working on intercepted alien transmissions. Admiral, I'm getting reports from the depot. They're asking for help, but they're not getting any responses. Good. The Veltar are spread too thin trying to hold all their conquered territories. They can't protect everything. The human fleet attacked the depot with tactics that shocked the alien defenders. Instead of destroying everything, they carefully targeted only military installations while protecting the civilian areas where slaves were kept. When the battle was over, Mi-kyung's ships had rescued 3,000 enslaved beings from a dozen different species. Many of them had never seen humans before, but they had heard the stories. "You're really human?" asked a young melodian whose people were known throughout the galaxy for their beautiful music. "The ones who are fighting the Veltar Empire?" "We're really human," Mi-kyung confirmed. "And you're really free." The rescued slaves included members of artistic species like the Melodians, merchant peoples like the Kithara, and various others that the Veltar had conquered over the centuries. As Mi-kyung's ships carried them to safety, these beings witnessed human warfare up close. They watched human engineers work 18-hour shifts to keep captured alien technology running. They saw human soldiers share their food with rescued slaves even when supplies were short. They observed the way humans fought, with a combination of careful planning and desperate courage that seemed impossible. Trader Kesatai of the Cathara had been a slave for 3 years before Mikyung's fleet freed him. As a member of a merchant species, he traveled throughout the galaxy and talked to beings from hundreds of worlds. These humans fight like the universe owes them a blood debt, he told other traders at a spaceport in neutral territory. I saw one of their engineers repair a starship engine while it was still running, just because stopping it would have slowed down a rescue mission. Word spread through the merchant networks that connected distant star systems. Stories about human tactics, human stubbornness, and human victories began circulating in cantinas and trading posts across the galaxy. The stories grew in the telling. Some were true, some were exaggerated, and some were completely made up. But they all carried the same message. Humanity was not just surviving the Veltar invasion. They were winning. In his command center on the Veltar homeworld, War Marshal Thexvar read reports from across the Empire. The situation was worse than anyone had imagined. 3 more fleets have been defeated, his aide reported. The humans seem to know our tactics better than we know theirs. How is this possible? Thexvar demanded. They have no formal military tradition, no warrior culture. They should be easy to defeat. Sir, our intelligence suggests that humans don't think of war the way we do. For us, war is about conquest and honor. For them, it seems to be about survival and revenge. Thexvar looked at a holographic display showing human military activities. Red dots marked successful human raids across dozens of star systems. The pattern made no sense according to traditional military strategy, but it was devastatingly effective. They're not trying to hold territory, he realized. They're trying to make conquest too expensive for us to maintain. Yes, sir. Every world we try to occupy requires massive resources to defend. Every supply line needs constant protection. The humans attack our weakest points and disappear before we can respond. The humans had turned the entire war into a giant version of their resistance on Earth. They struck where the enemy was vulnerable, disappeared when faced with superior force, and always made their enemies pay more than they could afford. On a space station in the Outer Rim, Captain Hojun An was preparing his crew for their most ambitious mission yet. They were going to capture a Veltar dreadnought, one of the massive ships that had seemed invincible when the war began. Remember, he told his boarding party, we're not trying to match their technology. We're trying to get close enough to use our advantages. Human advantages included smaller size, greater flexibility, and a willingness to take risks that seemed insane to aliens. Hojun's plan involved using small ships to get past the dreadnought's defenses, then boarding it with portable weapons and explosives. The mission succeeded because the Veltar couldn't believe anyone would be crazy enough to attempt it. By the time they realized what was happening, human Marines were fighting in the corridors of their most powerful warship. The captured dreadnought became a symbol of human capability that spread throughout the galaxy. Footage of the boarding action was broadcast on communication networks, showing beings from hundreds of species exactly what humans were capable of when they decided to fight. The Galactic Council, the loose alliance of peaceful species that governed. Most civilized worlds began receiving reports about these humans from across their territory. Most council members had never heard of Earth or its people before the war began. Chancellor Threndoy, the ancient leader of the council, studied the reports with growing concern. The descriptions of human warfare tactics were unlike anything in galactic history. They use biological weapons, one report stated. They attack supply lines instead of military targets. They sacrifice their own lives to achieve tactical objectives. They show no respect for the traditional rules of warfare. But other reports told different stories. Humans had rescued enslaved populations at great risk to themselves. They shared their resources with refugees from conquered worlds. They seemed to care deeply about protecting the innocent, even while waging total war against their enemies. These humans are a contradiction, Threndoy observed to his advisors. They fight like savages, but they act like protectors. The Chancellor didn't understand yet that humans saw in. Chancellor Threndoy of the Galactic Council stood before the massive holographic display in the council chamber, looking at reports that seemed impossible to believe. 3 Veltar conquest fleets had been completely destroyed by human forces in the past month. What should have been a simple planetary occupation had become a grinding war that had lasted 3 years. "Are we certain these reports are accurate?" asked Council Member Zethara from her floating platform. Her species, the Etherians, were known for their careful analysis of information. "Multiple sources confirm," replied the Council's intelligence chief. "The human species has not only survived the Veltar invasion of their homeworld, they have launched successful counterattacks across 17 star systems." The council chamber buzzed with conversation in dozens of alien languages. Representatives from 200 species had gathered to discuss what many were calling the most significant military development in galactic history. General Hio Seob Cha walked into the council chamber with confidence that surprised the alien observers. He was accompanied by diplomat Jung-Min Yun, and together they represented a species that most council members were only now learning about. "Honored delegates," Jung-Min began, speaking in perfect galactic standard, "we come before you not to ask for help, but to offer a warning." The chamber fell silent. It was unusual for any species to address the council without first requesting aid or trade agreements. Any government, organization, or species that provides assistance to the Veltar Empire will be considered hostile to humanity, Hioseob stated clearly. "We will respond accordingly." The silence stretched longer. Council Member Velesh of the Zephyrian Commonwealth leaned forward on his platform. "General, are you threatening the Galactic Council?" "I am informing the Council," Hioseob replied. "The Veltar Empire has declared war on humanity. We have accepted that declaration. Anyone who chooses to support our enemies becomes our enemy as well." Chancellor Threndoy had lived for 600 years and had seen many species make bold claims before the Council. But there was something different about these humans. They spoke with the quiet certainty of people who had already proven their words with actions. "General Cha," the Chancellor said, "our intelligence report suggests that your species faces overwhelming odds. The Veltar Empire has military resources that exceed yours by factors of thousands." "Respectfully, Chancellor," Jung-Min interjected, "your intelligence reports are incomplete." She activated a holographic display that showed the current military situation across Veltar space. Red zones marked areas where human forces had disrupted Imperial operations. Blue zones showed where human allies were fighting alongside resistance, movements on conquered worlds. "The Veltar Empire controls fewer star systems today than they did when this war began," Jung-Min explained. "They are losing territory, losing ships, and losing the will to fight. War Marshal Thexvar had requested permission to address the Council via long-range communication from the Veltar homeworld. His image appeared as a shimmering hologram, showing the stress lines that 3 years of war had carved into his features. "Honored Council," Thexvar began, "the Veltar Empire formally requests that you condemn the human species as a rogue element that threatens galactic stability." "In what way do they threaten stability?" asked Council Member Zethara. They refuse to follow the established rules of warfare, Thexavar replied. They attack civilian targets, use biological and chemical weapons, and show no respect for military honor. They must be stopped before their violent methods spread to other species. Hioseab stood to respond. War Marshal, you invaded our homeworld without provocation. You enslaved our people and threatened to destroy our civilization. We responded with every method available to us. If you find our defensive actions disturbing, you are welcome to leave our space. The exchange highlighted a fundamental difference in how different species viewed conflict. The Veltar saw war as a formal process with rules and procedures. Humans saw it as a fight for survival, where the only rule was winning. Senator Velesh of the Zephyrians had been studying human military operations for months. He had requested permission to present classified footage to the Council, and now seemed like the right time. With the Council's permission, Velesh said, I would like to show evidence of human military capabilities. The main display lit up with footage from the recent capture of a Veltar dreadnought. Council members watched in stunned silence as Captain Hojun-an led a boarding party using nothing but portable weapons and tactical explosives. The footage showed humans fighting in ways that violated every known convention of civilized warfare. They used the ship's own systems against its crew. They booby-trapped corridors with improvised explosives. They turned the alien vessel's sophisticated technology into a weapon against itself. This recording shows humans capturing one of the most powerful warships in the galaxy, Velesh explained. They accomplished this with fewer than 50 personnel and no heavy weapons. The Council members watched as human Marines systematically took control of the massive alien ship. What impressed them most was not the violence, but the coordination and intelligence behind every action. How did they know where to go? Asked Council Member Thoros. How did they understand the ship's systems well enough to use them? Intelligence. Gathering, Hioseab answered. We study our enemies. We learn their weaknesses. We adapt our tactics accordingly. Chancellor Threndoy was beginning to understand that humanity approached warfare as a problem to be solved rather than a ritual to be performed. While other species fought according to tradition and honor, humans fought to win. Spy Master Inguk. Sohn had infiltrated the council meeting using credentials provided by sympathetic aliens. His mission was to gather intelligence on how different species viewed the human-Veltar conflict. What he learned was disturbing. Many council members were genuinely afraid of humanity. They saw human military tactics as a threat to the established order of galactic civilization. But others were intrigued. Representatives from species that lived under the threat of Veltar expansion were asking quiet questions about human military advisors and defensive alliances. The galaxy is choosing sides, Inguk reported to his superiors via encrypted communication. Some fear us, but others see us as potential protectors. The debate in the council chamber continued for hours. Some members argued that humanity should be condemned for their violent methods. Others pointed out that the Veltar Empire had started the war and had shown no mercy to previous victims. Finally, Chancellor Threndoy called for order. We have heard testimony from both sides. We have seen evidence of human military capabilities. Now we must decide how the Council will respond to this situation. What is there to decide? Asked Council Member Drexon of the warrior species known as the Kavak. The humans are defending themselves against unprovoked aggression. They have the right to use whatever methods are necessary, but their methods could spread, argued Council Member Ythara. If other species begin adopting human-style warfare, It could destabilize the entire galaxy. Chancellor Threndoy realized that the Council was facing a choice that would define the future of galactic civilization. They could condemn humanity and try to maintain the old order, or they could accept that a new kind of warfare had emerged. The evidence shows that humanity possesses military capabilities that exceed our previous understanding, the Chancellor announced. More importantly, they have demonstrated the will to use those capabilities without restraint when their survival is threatened. He paused, looking around the chamber at representatives from hundreds of worlds. We have discovered that there are two types of species in this galaxy, Threndoy continued, those who make war and those who are war. The chamber fell completely silent as the implications of his words sank in. The human species appears to belong to the second category, the Chancellor said. They do not simply fight battles. They embody conflict itself. They have turned their entire civilization into a weapon. Council member Velesh stood to speak. Chancellor, are you suggesting that humans are inherently dangerous to galactic peace? I am suggesting that humans are inherently dangerous to anyone who threatens them, Threndoy replied. The Veltar Empire made the mistake of assuming that military superiority guarantees victory. They have learned otherwise. The Chancellor's next words would be recorded in galactic history. Let it be noted that the Galactic Council recognizes the human species as a sovereign power with the right to defend itself by any means necessary. Let it also be noted that any species considering aggressive action against humanity should carefully consider the consequences. War Marshal Thexvar's hologram flickered with rage. You are legitimizing barbarism. You are encouraging these savages to spread their violent methods throughout the galaxy. War Marshal, Chancellor Threndoy replied calmly, your empire has spent centuries spreading violence throughout the galaxy. The humans are simply better at it than you are. As the council session ended, representatives from dozens of species approached the human delegation. Some offered trade agreements, others proposed defensive alliances. A few quietly asked about military advisors. Jungmin and Hyoseob found themselves at the center of a new kind of diplomacy, one based not on Fleet Admiral Ji-hoon. Kim stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking through the main window at the massive Veltar dreadnought that served as the Empire's command vessel. 5 years had passed since his first encounter with the aliens in the Kepler 442 system, and now he was here to accept their surrender. The war was over. The Veltar Empire, which had conquered 17 star systems over 3 centuries, no longer existed. Their fleets were scattered or destroyed. Their colonies had rebelled. Their military doctrine had been shattered by an enemy that refused to follow any rules. Sir, reported his communication officer, the Veltar commander is requesting permission to come aboard. Ji-hoon nodded. Grant permission. Full military honors. Even in victory, humans understood the importance of showing respect to a defeated enemy. It was one of the things that separated them from the Veltar, who had never shown mercy to anyone they conquered. War Marshal Thexvar entered the human flagship accompanied by 2 guards. He looked older than when the war had started, his armor scarred from battles he had never expected to fight. His eyes held the hollow look of someone who had seen his entire worldview destroyed. Admiral Kim, Thexvar said in heavily accented Korean, I formally surrender all remaining Veltar forces to human command. The surrender ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. Billions of beings watched as the most feared military commander in known space handed over his weapon to a human officer. But Ji-hoon did something that surprised everyone watching. Instead of keeping the weapon as a trophy, he handed it back to Thexvar. "Keep it," Ji-hoon said. "You'll need it to maintain order among your people during the transition." Thexvar stared at the weapon in his hands. "You trust me with this?" "War Marshal, your empire is gone, but your people still need leadership. Help them find a new path, one that doesn't involve conquering their neighbors." It was a gesture that would be remembered throughout galactic history, the moment when humanity showed that they fought to end wars, not to replace one tyranny with another. President Yoon Seo-choi had been elected during the darkest days of the HFY War, when Earth was still occupied and humanity's survival was in doubt. Now she stood before the Galactic Council as the leader of the most powerful military force in known space. "Members of the Council," she began, "humanity did not seek this war. It was forced upon us by an empire that believed might made right. We fought because we had no choice. We won because we refused to accept defeat." The council chamber was packed with representatives from hundreds of species. Many of them had allied with humanity during the war. Others had remained neutral, watching, to see which side would win. "Now that the war is over," President Choi continued, "we must decide what kind of galaxy we want to build. Humanity offers partnership to all peaceful species, but we also make a promise. Never again will any empire be allowed to grow so powerful that it can threaten entire civilizations." Ambassador Kyung-ho Paek stood beside the president, holding a document that would reshape galactic politics. The Terra Accords were named after Earth's Latin designation, and they established new rules for interstellar relations. The Accords recognize every species' right to defend itself by any means necessary, Kyung-ho explained. They prohibit aggressive expansion and mandate that disputes be settled through negotiation rather than conquest. But the most important part of the Accords was the enforcement mechanism. Humanity would serve as the galaxy's peacekeepers, with the authority to intervene when aggressive species threaten their neighbors. "We don't want to rule the galaxy," President Choi emphasized. "We want to make sure no one else can." Council. Member Velesh of the Zephyrians stood to address the assembly. "President Choi, how can we be certain that humanity won't become the very thing you fought against? How do we know you won't use your military superiority to build your own empire?" It was a fair question. Every previous galactic power had eventually used their strength to dominate others. What made humans different? "Because," President Choi replied, "we've seen what happens when empires grow too powerful. We lived under Veltar occupation. We know what it feels like to have your world threatened by beings who think they have the right to rule over others." She gestured to the viewing screen, which showed images of Earth during the war, cities in ruins, people hiding in tunnels, children who had never known peace. "We remember what we fought for," she continued, "and we remember what we fought against. That memory will guide us." Captain Soo-jong-moon was preparing her ship for humanity's first diplomatic mission to the galaxy's outer rim. Her vessel, the Harmony, represented everything humans had become during the war, powerful enough to fight, but designed for peace. "Engineering reports ready," said her chief engineer. "Weapon systems armed but concealed. Diplomatic quarters, prepared for representatives from 12 different species." Soo-jong nodded. The ship carried both scientists and marines, diplomats and weapons that could crack planets. It was a perfect symbol of humanity's new role in the galaxy. They came in peace, but they were prepared for war. "Navigation. Set course for the Andromeda Gate," she ordered. "Let's go meet our new neighbors." The mission was important because Rumors had reached human intelligence about aggressive species in the Outer Rim that were planning their own campaigns of conquest. The Terra Accords meant nothing if humanity couldn't enforce them at the edges of known space. As the Harmony jumped to faster-than-light speed, Sujong thought about how much had changed since the war began. Humans had gone from being unknown, primitives, to the galaxy's dominant military power in just 5 years. But with that power came responsibility. On a space station orbiting the former Veltar homeworld, Commander Chang Min Quan was working with former resistance leaders to establish the Galactic Peace Enforcement Division. The GPED would be humanity's tool for preventing future wars before they could start. "Remember," he told his staff during their morning briefing, "we're not conquerors. We're referees. Our job is to make sure everyone plays by the rules." The GPED would operate differently than any previous galactic military force. Instead of occupying territory or ruling over other species, they would respond to threats quickly and withdraw once the situation was resolved. Swift response, minimal force, complete withdrawal, Chang Min explained. "We go in, stop the aggression, and leave. No permanent bases, no colonial governments, no tribute payments." It was a radical concept that many alien species found difficult to understand. Throughout galactic history, military intervention had always led to occupation and domination. Humans were proposing something entirely new, the use of superior force to maintain peace rather than to gain territory. Dr. Subin An had been appointed as Earth's chief science advisor, responsible for managing the influx of alien technology. That came with humanity's new galactic status. Her team was working to adapt Veltar and other alien technologies for peaceful purposes. "The key is to stay ahead technologically," she explained to President Choi during a briefing. "If we want to enforce peace, we need to maintain military superiority. But we also need to use that technology to help other species develop their own defenses." It was another balancing act, staying powerful enough to deter aggression while helping potential allies become strong enough to defend themselves. "We're not trying to create dependence," Subin continued. "We're trying to create a galaxy where every species is strong enough that conquest becomes impossible." Years passed, and the new galactic order began to take shape. Human peacekeepers responded to dozens of conflicts, always following the same pattern: swift intervention, minimal force, complete withdrawal. The phrase human-style warfare became synonymous with total commitment, creative tactics, and the willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. Military academies across the galaxy studied human tactics not to copy them, but to understand what happened when diplomacy failed with a species that viewed existence as a zero-sum game. But humans also became known for their generosity in victory and their commitment to protecting the weak. When natural disasters struck alien worlds, human relief ships were usually first on the scene. When pirates threatened trade routes, human patrol ships hunted them down without asking for payment. A quiet morning on Earth, an alien child visiting with her parents asked her mother a question that had become common throughout the galaxy. "Mama, what are humans?" The mother, a member of the peaceful Melodian species, thought carefully before answering. "They're the reason we sleep peacefully at night, little one. Because somewhere out there they're making sure nothing disturbs the peace." It was a simple answer, but it captured the essence of what humanity had become. They were not conquerors or rulers. They were guardians who stood watch over a galaxy that had learned to value peace over power. The Veltar War had ended, but its lessons would be remembered forever. The galaxy had learned that technological superiority didn't guarantee victory, that the will to fight could overcome any disadvantage, and that sometimes the most dangerous species was the one that refused to surrender. But most importantly, the galaxy had learned that power could be used for protection rather than domination, and that the strongest species could choose to serve peace rather than their own interests. In cantinas and trading posts throughout known space,